Hello to all you magic makers out there, and welcome to Touch of Magic. This is a show where we explore everything magical, mystical, mysterious, and metaphysical. I'm Marissa DiAradia, aka Sin City Witch, and today we're going to talk about hoodoo and conjure and divination and spirituality and all sorts of cool stuff with our guest, Rob Abbott of Mystical Mojo. Rob's a conjure man, spiritual advisor, astrologer, psychic palm reader, tarot reader, and he's also the owner of Mystical Mojo, which offers psychic services and conjure specialties. Welcome, Rob. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Many blessings.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So I'm going to start off with
Yeah.
asking you a few things about yourself, because that's really what this show is about, is getting to know people who are practicing in their lives, that have businesses and spiritual services and are living the craft every day or living their magic every day. So how did you get involved with magic and divination?
How did I get involved? That is a wonderful place to start. I was at a very, very, very young, early age when I discovered, or I literally feel like that pun intended, that it was literally in my roots. So I discovered the occult when I was very young, 7, 8 years old, and then I was blessed and fortunate enough to be also raised around, just excuse me, just with knowing that my bloodline on my father's side actually has indigenous, and I was raised with the chicken's feet by the door and the Native American corn on the table, and uh, and knowing the her the heredity and ancestry line and things like that. So I was raised with it, as well as fell in love with the with magic and with the occult when at a really young age of around 8. So
Yeah.
life,
Yeah, so you were around these folk magic traditions from when you can remember.
yes, ma'am.
That's amazing, and you just felt real connected to it. That's amazing. I
Yeah.
love that. I think a lot of people who get involved with the occult and magical practices, they feel it from a young age. They feel that connection, right? So, tell me a little bit about your path. You have an eclectic and diverse path. We've talked a little bit. Maybe share with everybody like how where did you start and where did you end up, and and where you are right now.
Where did I start? Well, I started it simply at that young age, knowing the fact that where I come from, things like that. Now, this is a really long story short because you know I'm in my 40s, so that's quite a long time. So, uh, but honestly, over the years, I have had. Oh my gosh, it's been amazing. My journey has been absolutely amazing because I have went so far as to 2002, 2005. I was primarily, more. I went to the pagan route. Wicca from 2002 to 2005. So I had a standing in Wicca as well, and also in 2008, I actually was did 2008, 2009, a couple years. I did the LHP path, Luciferian Witchcraft, as well. So in 2010, I really primarily I call it being more drawn back down to my roots, as well as I honestly was called by a different set of spirits and than what I was really accustomed to working with. And it's something that I really, therefore, that part, that's something that I really didn't look for. Really, that part called to me, the spirit called to me. So it's been an interesting journey. So from 2010 to that present, um, I primarily my primary practices now. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous tonight, but my primary practices tonight. Listen to me. My primary practices now, excuse me, are of course HooDoo Conjure and Rootwork from
Yeah.
2010 on
It's all
up.
good, honey. We're all good. And I'm so excited that you're here, and I don't want you to be nervous. This is
Thank
fun.
you.
It's being you. is me and you talking. That's it. I'm just trying to get to know you, and we want everybody else to get to know you. Um, so, so you've landed at hoodoo and conjure. And personally, I only have a peripheral understanding of this topic. And I'm really excited to hear more about it from somebody who practices and your personal practice. That's what I'm interested in. I want to get to know you. And, you're living this path, you're living this life. And I think it could be inspirational to other people who are also trying to find their way and want to live authentically. And this is where you were called. So let's talk a little bit about that. Okay. So for people who may not know, what is hoodoo?
Hoodoo is African based. Hoodoo is come over with the transatlantic slave trade. Honestly, the primary root of hoodoo is African folk magic tradition.
Okay. So from what I understand, it's an African folk magic tradition that was blended with Christianity.
Partly so, partly so. As soon as through the colonial, times, particularly within the transatlantic slave trade, as well as the diaspora, within, how the slave trade went with the Caribbean as well, and also North America, including Canada. Some folks don't actually recognize that aspect of it, and things like that. So yes, but it's primarily African, and the component of it came over with the slave trade from West Africa. And then when it got here, of course, slaves having no rights, no freedom, some slaves perhaps were already exposed, or maybe slightly Protestant Christian, maybe perhaps before they got here due to other, but that's a whole other show. But
Right.
primarily, if they weren't to have their spirituality still, for the spirituality to thrive, it had to be synchronized, because again, expressing the fact that slaves didn't have any rights. So they had to synchronize their beliefs in the way of their work and their knowledge of root. So of course, as soon as I say this, and disclaimer, this is my practice, this is how I practice, how I roll. So of course, this is so with that being said, they got here and they were oppressed. And of course, the Native American indigenous folks. Indigenous is um, honestly involving many, many, many different types of tribes, and the way that they were through history, those years there.
Right. So there was a blend between some of that Native American spirituality with the African, with the Christianity. So something entirely new was created that was different than what was practiced in Africa, right?
I wouldn't say that it's entirely different than what it was practiced in Africa, because the core component of certain core beliefs is what makes hoodoo. So
Okay.
rootwork conjure, meaning that principle, that core principle of the ancestors. If you take the ancestors out of conjure, hoodoo, rootwork, you're no longer working hoodoo. You're no longer working conjure, rootwork, hoodoo. That's
So that
very
ancestral lineage is very, very important.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Got it. Got it. So what's the difference between hoodoo and voodoo, which I think people confuse that. And
Concept.
also, what we'll look at that, and then we'll look at what's the difference between hoodoo, root work, and conjure, if there is any difference.
What is the difference between hoodoo and voodoo? Hoodoo, conjure, root work, synchronized those three things, together like that. Uh, what is the difference? Hoodoo is a folk magic, and voodoo is a religion. And particularly if voodoo is spelled three different ways for three different reasons, like because we have Haitian voodoo, which is a closed religion. We have African voodoo, and we have Louisiana Creole, or uh, Nola Voodoo, Voodoo. So voodoo is a religion, and it has connotations more or less. Again with the transatlantic slave trade, voodoo synchronized with the saints of Catholicism. So therefore, that it, again, just to really hide their practices and for it to be able to thrive and exist as well, they had to synchronize it in under the guise of the Catholic saints versus hoodoo as well. And you mentioned Christianity, Protestants, because um, I honestly say that if most of them were exposed or hadn't been exposed, they were primarily, you give it 150, 200 years after the fact of slave trade when it started and things like that. So that's how in hoodoo, now that of course we use the Bible, the Bible comes into play a lot within the work within hoodoo. So
Okay. All right. Good. That was a great explanation.
thank
That
you.
cleared a little up for me.
Oh,
So,
great.
like I said, I don't know a whole lot about this. I've read a couple of books, but this isn't my expertise
Yeah.
is not in this tradition. So I had asked you, are hoodoo, conjure, and root work the same thing? Because I hear them used interchangeably, but I have some understanding that they're not quite the same thing. So,
That is multi faceted in many areas. If I were to have to break it down, I would break it down like this, okay? And simply to hopefully explain in a simple, in a simple fashion or manner to help that out some. If I were to have to break it down, I use conjure as synonymous with hoodoo. Uh, but I must reiterate the fact that, first of all, uh, conjure is to facilitate changes in conditions. With work, that's what you do. With conjure work, we are facilitating changes within condition. I think that with that being said, that it's imperative for people to know as well that hoodoo, conjure, a root work. If I say root worker, because they literally like to work with your hands, with the roots, with the
with the
herbs.
roots themselves, right?
Yes, and develop it because they have ashe. They have the energy. They have the ashe. The everything has ashe. So they have the energy, and they were living. And you give homage to the spirits of the root, spirits of the plants as well. It's very important, as well. So root worker, to that's the personal way that I just simply break it down the most to people is when root worker, to me, it means that that's an explanation that you literally are working root. You're developing a relationship with working the roots and awakening the roots and remembering the root in the plant in the spirit of such. So, and to conjure is to facilitate changes in condition. Hoodoo. Hoodoo is not only about the tricks. Hoodoo is not about just the spells or just the spiritual work. Hoodoo is culture. Hoodoo is the way that you live on a day-to-day basis. It is some things that people would call wives' tales or superstitions. It's a whole life. It is not. It's the culture. It is the way that you are walking a walk and talking a talk as well.
Okay.
And I think that's really really important for folks to understand that it is not just simply about casting spells and spiritual work. Not, of course, this is part,
Yeah.
part,
Part of it,
right,
right?
of course. Yeah. I'm saying it is broader than that. There is more that encompasses hoodoo than just laying tricks. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right. There's a
mhm.
spiritual aspect of it that needs to be honored and respected if this is what your path is. I
Yes.
get that. I think that's beautiful. So we already talked about where these practices originated. Where do you find them mostly in the United States though? Hooter. I can't talk either. Hoodoo and conjure. I put the two words together there. Hoodoo and conjure. Where do you find most of that practice
Oh,
here?
the southern United States, of course, because it's primarily where the slave majorly happened, of course, with the Civil War being in the South and the history within the South, the Southern United States. And then, we have to get very technical within the Southern United States. I think this is very important for folks to recognize that, in the South, there are 6 primary forms of what we would identify as Southern folk magic. So hoodoo is just hoodoo rootwork conjure versus granny magic versus powwow, Pennsylvania Dutch, Ozark. And
Okay. I thought they were all the same. See, I thought those things were like all kind of the same thing. They're not.
no, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Oh my God.
No, ma'am. There are very distinct differences in which one makes them exactly what they are. And largely, okay, for instance, I know this is random and on the spot, but I'll do my best. So primarily, if like right off the top of my head, one of the primary differences, let's compare something with, let's say, Appalachia rootwork versus deeper southern hoodoo. Okay, or the Gullah Geechee in South and North Carolina over there on the coast. Region per region, therefore, the influence of how much of the slave trade at that particular place, in that particular region, and that tradition that was orally passed down from those prior generations makes the world a difference. And then the immigration, like if you're talking powwow or Pennsylvania Dutch, you're going to have primarily more Irish and German or Scottish versus African American, and etc.
Right.
So,
Right.
yes, ma'am, that's
Okay.
what makes.
So these are all different American folk magic traditions that I would have thought were very similar, but are obviously not. So I'm going to have to do my homework after this exciting conversation we're having, because now I've got something to look into, which I love.
Awesome. Oh, great. That's fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So can anybody can practice hoodoo, or only
Oh,
certain
that's a
people?
hot. We gonna get hot in here. We're gonna take it to the hot topic. I
Okay, but I'm asking.
You rock. So listen, this is I'm going to say, can anybody practice hoodoo? I'm going to say no. And
Okay.
I will say no, because hoodoo's not cut out for everybody. Not everybody is cut out for hoodoo.
Right, that's
And
fair. That's fair.
and in the same concept, I must reiterate the fact that no, not everybody can practice. I don't think that everybody should. I don't think that anybody can, should at least. And there's multiple reasons why that I would say no. I would honestly say that that is well with it. It's important because again, if you take the ancestors out of hoodoo, then you're not practicing hoodoo. If you take the African American component out of hoodoo, then that's not any longer hoodoo. So there's no way around that. So if so I would say no, just simply because I think that I fear sometimes, honestly, in 10 more years, 15 more years, and this, I believe this is a very imperative, and I think we noted it uh, as well. I fear the fact that 10, 15 more years, people are going to be calling something like Wickadoo, because people often say, is there karma within conjure, within hoodoo? What are the moral principles of conjure and hoodoo? How do you justify whether to lay a trick on somebody or to work for someone, and things like that? So there's no what we call karma in conjure, hoodoo, root work, or threefold law, like there is within Wicca. Uh, if work is justified work, we do the work. And
So
I'm a two-headed worker, so I work with both hands. So I work with the right and the left hand.
okay, but you know what? I actually know what that means. Yay for me. But the
Yes.
people watching may not know what that means. So maybe you can explain that. What does that mean? Two-headed, right and left hand. Let them know. Yeah,
okay.
they don't know. They don't know. So you got to tell them.
So the two-headed that means that you that means that you work with right and left hand in hoodoo, refer to baneful practices versus positive practices.
Okay.
The right hand would be um, like healing properties and the components of healing and positive work, and the left hand would be cursing, crossing, laying tricks,
Okay.
hexing, things that would fall under that would fall under the left hand. Domination, control work, and etc.
So some people would consider that like baneful magic, right? Things that could cause harm, or that
not
you
yet.
would not see typical pagan witches doing, right? Not most of them. All right, I get it. I get it. That's it. I love the colorful way that you split two-headed, and the right left hand. I love it. I love it. So so you work with both sides of that. So you're
It's
shadow
all
and
Yes, ma'am. It's all about balance. It's
yeah,
all about balance. It really is all about balance. It's very important not to let one's knowing that you know James 2, it comes out of the old James 2, faith without works is dead. So with that being said, with having the faith and living this life, things like that, it's very important that you do. You can't just talk the talk and not walk the walk.
right.
You have to really stay on top of it, and it's about balance. You don't want your ego to come into play. You don't want, you just because you facilitate changes in conditions doesn't mean that you can just throw at anybody that pisses you off. Oh, excuse me. Um,
You
but-
can say pisses you off. We're good.
and you can't just be throwing in bad juju just because you want to throw bad juju. It has to be a real moral or ethical worker.
Right.
Will
A justification for your actions. Is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
something you take into an account? Like, if there's a real justification for it.
Yeah, and
Is
then, and then
revenge justified?
what
Let's
is
just say revenge. Is that something that
what?
would be justifiable?
Absolutely. But here's
Okay.
the thing: when it comes to justification, see, that comes from, I personally have empathy and things like that, and I'm like thinking, oh yeah, Rob, I myself consciously want to go, oh hell yeah, yeah, let's
Yeah.
justify it, or the things that I've personally went through in my own personal life before, and things like that, and then it surprises the hell out of me, honestly, because then you have to do divination, you have to either throw the bones, you have to either do the divination with whatever tools that you're doing the divinations through, and with your communication with spirit. And it often 70%, honestly, 70% of the time I'm shocked. I'm honestly shocked because spirit says, we got you. And with clients and things like, honestly, as well, I hope I'm not moving forward too far here or
It's
anything.
not,
But
we're just talking, honey. Let's do it.
and 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 with clients and things like that, I I've learned as well that justification is interesting, because a lot of times, even though that, like in my personal situation, spirit says we got you, but it's imperative with clients, because I do work for clients as well and things, so it's imperative there. Not all money is good money. Not all money is good money. I am not getting my ass handed to me, a spiritual ass whipping. If spirit tells me clearly, and I see it through intuitive, psychic means and things like that, connection with spirit. Uh, if I see that it's not justified, there's no way that I'm doing that work. There is no way, and that comes also with responsibility. It comes with age. It comes with being a seasoned worker, things like that. You obviously evolve and you learn with your experience and through wisdom. So
Absolutely. What do they say? Knowledge is having information, and wisdom is knowing when to use it. So there you go. Right? Right?
yes, yeah,
So you need that wisdom. And it sounds like, you put a lot of thought into it before you're doing any kind of working, right?
yes.
All right. So you're saying that not everybody is disposed to the magical energy of hoodoo, and they're not connected to that ancestral energy. Do you have to be um, blood, a blood lineage, to be able to practice? like to somebody who already practiced? Is it passed down that way, or can the spirits call to anybody from this tradition?
Spirit led.
Yeah,
It's spirit led. Yes, ma'am.
spirit led. Okay,
Spirit
I
led.
like I like that, because I think they know who they want to talk to, right? They know who they want to call. I think we all have our callings to whatever it is we're doing in life and in our spiritual journey. And yeah, I'm with that. So, so people want to learn more about this. What's the best way if they feel like they're called? Let's say, okay, so somebody's out there right now. They feel like that they've been called to this path. They don't know what's the best or correct way to approach the study of this practice. And that, and obviously you don't want to be stepping on the toes of the ancestors, so to speak, or the lineage of this tradition in any way. So
Exactly.
what's the right way? What's the correct way for them to come to this path if they're interested?
That's very well reiterated with respect and admiration, always reverence with the ancestors. I always point that out, and it's so imperative. Um, uh, Google does not replace a mentor. Google is not always reliable. So, uh, first of all and foremost, I would say seek a reputable mentor. Seek a reputable mentor within Conjure Rootwork and HooDoo. Um, I have a personal mentor as well that I'm blessed to have, and that's she's an amazing lady and amazing resource herself, Denise Alvarado, if I may, and
Okay, of course. Give her a shout out.
yeah,
Hello, Denise Alvarado. How are you?
I love Miss Denise. Denise Alvarado is a personal mentor of mine for a very long time and close friend as well. So yes,
So
but seek
just
a
going out and find somebody. How do you make sure that they're like legit though? Like that's the thing you got to worry about, because unfortunately in any of the metaphysical practices or esoteric arts or magical traditions, you've got some scammers out there. So how
yes.
does somebody make sure that they've got somebody who's the real deal?
Word of mouth does still, hopefully, in today's world is all techno and and everything. But word of mouth typically is very important. I mean, at least it was in my day, in the old days. Is and I would say it
No,
is.
you're making me
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
old. I'm 10 years older than you are, just about. So
When I was being brought up in things, I mean, root workers, conjurers, we don't, for one thing, and I think that it still primarily should work like this still, honestly. It's not necessarily that I'm out soliciting people and saying, in the old days, people was word of mouth. So, and people came to you for your assistance and things like that. So definitely, I would keep my ear out for those types of things. Whether, what is that person's reputable as far as uh, you want validation, and you would also want, you know, uh, things like that. So definitely, it's definitely again
maybe
book.
like reviews, credentials, something
Yes.
that is verifiable and provable. I
Hmm.
think that's always a good rule of thumb for anything, right?
Yes.
Somebody that you can look up and see all about them somewhere, and it wasn't from yesterday, right? I mean, something they didn't, they didn't just pop up, 2 months ago. That's probably good for any magical teacher or whatever, right? We have
Yes.
a question from one of our Facebook watchers here. And if you have to click, it says Facebook user. So if you're coming from iWitches, you're not going to be able to see, we're not going to be able to see your name, because you have to click some button on Restream. I'm not sure what the deal is with that, but we're going to, Facebook user, whoever you are, hello. It says, can I ask a question? When I lived in New Orleans, there were people there who would just teach anyone. Do you feel that's wrong for them to do, just randomly teach anyone?
Do I feel like that it's randomly wrong for them to teach anybody in New Orleans? Uh, I personally, I feel as if, is it wrong? It's not my place to judge. Uh,
Okay.
Other workers on the precedent of situations like that. I try not to judge those situations. Is it wrong to just teach anyone? I personally, I've honestly said no to 6 people in the last 6 weeks asking about mentorship. I will not personally just take anybody under my personal practice. I will not just teach anyone because I think that, first of all, that it comes with a deal of responsibility, a great deal of responsibility. And therefore, what I feel like what I teach and how I would present that and things, I'm responsible for that. I have to answer to spirit myself. So
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily just teach anybody. No.
Okay. So randomly, you feel like just random people sharing information. You know what I found though? Can I just be honest with you?
Yes.
Even my own practice, which I'm always honest, brutally. People don't always like that, but I just say what I think. But I noticed a lot of people think they want to learn something or think they want to be something, but they don't want to put the work in to
Yes.
actually accomplish it or actually learn what it is they're doing. And I think that goes through almost every tradition. They start off excited, but then when they realize it's real work, like there's real, and there's real responsibility involved, no matter what spiritual energy you're dealing with, there is a responsibility when you are moving and manipulating energies in any way. And I don't
Yes.
care if it's the ancestors, gods or goddesses, the elementals, whatever,
Yes.
the universal energy, for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, right? No matter how you look at that, right?
Yes.
So, but they don't want to deal with the fact there's responsibility, that there's,
And you said, and Miss, my friend, Miss DiAradia, you said the key words. This is work. This is work. It is spiritual work. It ain't spiritually easy. It ain't spiritually lazy. This is spiritual work. Yes.
right. Absolutely. I think any tradition you're going to.
I can't hear you.
Hello. Oh,
Yes.
there you go. I'm back.
Good.
I don't know what happened. Sorry about that, guys. I'm back though. Yeah, I got a message that my sound went off, but I don't really know why. But
Oh my.
mysteries of technology, I guess.
Oh gosh.
Or maybe I was talking too much, and my spirits were like, "Shut up." I don't know. I don't know. Just kidding, guys. I'm a joker. I'm just kidding. All right. So, all right. Let's get back to my list of fabulous questions for you. All right. So obviously, we're talking about mentorship and training. So to be a practitioner of hoodoo, it does require some sort of specific training, right?
I would. That's a great question. That is a great question. Coming from the background that I come from, even being raised, around Conjure and things like that, I a specific amount of training, yes to a degree,
To a degree.
to a degree, yes,
Okay. Because in some in witchcraft traditions there's a hierarchy. Some of them have a hierarchy and you have to like elevate to certain levels, which since you did Wiccan training, right? So you go up the levels, and I'm wondering, that's not how it is with hoodoo. It's more organic, right?
yes.
Okay. So, what do you think the most important aspect of this practice is? What's the most important thing for people to know about this?
What is the most important people to think to know about this tradition? That it is indeed that it's very real, it's very living, and the fact that it's very powerful, as well as, again, to reiterate that you cannot take the ancestors out of hoodoo. You cannot take the African component out of hoodoo, uh, and it still be hoodoo. That's very important. To reiterate, as well as what is the most important parts of hoodoo. Uh, that is something never to be taken lightly. Uh, this is uh, this is not something that you just use for personal gain or personal power. This is a real, again and again, to reiterate. It's more than just tricks. This is a culture. This is a whole entire way of living. It's not just convenience. It's not something that you turn on and off at your convenience. Uh, when you're spiritually and dedicated, you're really dedicated, and it's it's a major uh, way to, it's a whole life. It is a
It's
whole
right.
life.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
All right. So, what types of tools? So we know I've already said I'm a pagan witch, right? So my tradition, I know the tools that I use: my athame, my wand, my cauldron, my pentacle. We have all of these different tools. What would be some things that you would commonly find in the practice of conjure
And a
or
curio,
hoodoo? Hoodoo.
and a curio. What may you find in the hoodoo curio?
All
Oh,
right. Oh,
oh, all kinds of beautiful, amazing things. First of all, with divination, it was more common, oftenly, being of African derivative and indigenous, and you'll find throwing bones and playing cards are used more than tarot, or traditionally they were more commonly in place for divination, and things like things that people may not realize that contain the essence of things like for domination work or control work, per se, like uh, a wasp nest or a mud dauber's nest. Those things, the things that pertain that energy of the the ashe of the things that you want to affect, or cause it to facilitate the condition change of conditions with. So it's a large variety of things that you would work with. I work with a large variety of things: snake skins,
Wow.
to alligators' teeth, to chicken's feet,
Alligator's
to
teeth. Wow.
yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. They're good for luck. They're good for protection
Oh,
and uh, and I oh wow, of course. Other things that I also work with, which were later incorporated within, hoodoo. Oil lamp work is a big one for me. The oil lamp work, which really outdates candle work, things
mhm.
like that as well. So it's a large variety of plants and herbs and roots, of course. I mean,
Of
there's
course.
a huge, there's a huge, this that alone is very important and imperative. So I work with a large variety of things that are found within hoodoo. The
Right.
Bible, the
Right.
Bible. I
The
think that's
Bible. There you
the
go.
Bible. I mean, that some people now are trying to discredit or go back and reclaim where this did come over with the slave trade, uh, and proclaim that the work without the Bible. Now, again, this is the Bible to me, and the hoodoo that I practice is very imperative. the Bible and is very imperative. So yes, I work, with the Bible
Yeah.
specifically, and
Psalms, right?
no,
Like
yeah, Psalms, but that's, if you look on Google, the number one thing that you're going to find is probably Psalms that is most associated with hoodoo. But that's
right.
not simply the case. That is not simply the case.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So all if you're going to do love work, for instance, you're not Psalms, maybe a few of them, but you're going to look at the Song of Solomon.
That
You-
makes
The
sense.
song, the Song of Solomon, which is all love. It's all about love.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. That makes a lot
so
of sense. Yeah.
yes, the book of Jeremiah, Exodus, for separation work, Exodus chapter 8, verse 1, to put a division between thy people. Tomorrow shall the sun be. So you would incorporate that within separation work. Uh, in the list, Psalms 91 for clean beings.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
amazing. So here's my question. So, the word witch has gotten very big, like that people that usually would not have called themselves that word call themselves that word now. Even people who just read cards, they've coined the term witch for divination work. And I'm not saying what my opinion is on that or not, but what I would like to know is, do people who practice hoodoo or conjure consider themselves witches, or are they not witches?
I would typically say no. I would typically say no. That most workers that I know don't incorporate them together like that.
Okay.
Conjure is conjure, and witchcraft is witchcraft. So a worker would, if they identify themselves, I've been doing this so long that it wasn't even until the last decade or so that I really had to put the label of being, working hoodoo, conjure. Like, so with that being said, it's imperative to understand that back in the old days, we just did the work. We didn't really. It's part of, again, I was blessed enough to be raised with that as well, and
Right. So you didn't really call it, it's just part of your lifestyle. It was your day-to-day life, right? Like that's
yes,
what you did. All right.
yes.
I respect that. I respect that. So and so would you say that a lot of people who practice hoodoo and conjure are Christians?
Yes, yes. A lot of the folks that are practicing, you can find, in the South, they had what were called prayer closets, prayer houses, and prayer closets. So, in the early African Methodist Episcopal Church, or the early Presbyterian Baptist Pentecostal, uh, if there's a large component to where those people were, again, and due to synchronicity, again, with the transatlantic slave trade. And so, yes, a lot of the folks would identify themselves as,
As Christians, right? And they do workings, and they do,
yes.
lay tricks, right? That's the terminology, right? Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And I think that a lot of people forget that a lot of folk magic practices actually are done by people who identify as Christians. In the group by witches that I run on Facebook, it's huge. There's so many people, and there's constantly fights with people about, whether they're magical or not, if they're Christian or not. And honestly, I think that's between them and their gods. I mean, honestly. So, if somebody is looking for resources to find out more information on this topic, are there any like go to books, blogs, websites, things that you think they should definitely check out? If, they may not want to become, a hoodoo practitioner, but maybe they want to learn more about this. What would you suggest?
to to try to seek a personal mentor first, but good resources. Again, I honestly shouted out Miss Denise. Denise has been a blessing to me. So, uh, Creole Moon is a great place. Creole Moon, Mama Star. Another mentor of mine has been Mama Star. So I give them much praise and gratitude. Old style conjure, as well, and
Okay.
so
All right.
yeah,
That's a good start.
there's a lot of bad information out there as well. So I would be very cautious and selective
You know what
about.
I think we should do after this broadcast is over on that event page?
Mhm.
Um, I think that we should maybe put a list up of the people you mentioned. Can we do
Okay.
that? You can message
Yes.
it to me and I'll post it in there and we can put a list of people like where so if anybody's interested um in looking up different people and people who you know are authorities and elders in this magical path. That would be great so that people know where to look, you know? I think that's an important thing to know where to look. Um, all right, now let's talk a little bit about you and your practice, Mystical Mojo. You've got services. You do what tarot? Tell me all about it. I want to know everything that you offer to the people out here.
I offer a vast amount of things, honestly. Excuse me. I do offer spiritual work and consultations. I offer spiritual work for clients, as well as a large variety of divination. I've been doing readings, well, a really long time since, if professionally, it's over 20 plus years I've been doing readings. So I offer a large variety of readings, and I use a vast number of to connective divination tools. I read with playing cards, tarot, oracle. I throw bones. I actually use spirit boards as well. I uh, use the pendulum. I scry. So I offer a lot of different types of divination services, psychic, readings, and as well as spiritual work, which just putting it out there, uh, a consultation is absolutely a necessity. Before I will take on somebody for spiritual work, you absolutely have to have a consultation first.
Okay, so workings, what type of workings do you offer? Anything somebody needs,
I'm a,
dependent on whether you're led to do it or not.
a
Yeah.
Yes, though certain things I do will not do morally or ethically. I take a stance on, like
Okay.
things like that. I am a two-headed worker. I do work with both hands. So therefore, what kind of workings do I offer? I offer firewall protection, justice workings. I offer, oh my gosh, so many different types of what we would call categories, for lack of a better word, of types of specific work. On the right hand, justice work. I offer, oh my gosh, the list goes crazy. And then on the left hand, yes, I work the left hand. So if it's justified, of course, cross conditions, jinxing, laying tricks, which that includes everything from hot foot track magic to cow's tongue to oh my sweeten up people to sour jars to oh wow, DUME, um, that's death unto my enemies.
Well,
Um, so,
that
so,
escalated quickly. Sorry, I'm
so
not just that's pretty extreme, but he does
yeah,
everything. He does everything.
yeah.
And where can they reach you?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The best place, honestly, to reach out to me is my business page on Facebook. I do have Instagram and TikTok, and technology is just it's too much for my own bud. But so all my brand is Mystical Mojo, Mystikal Mojo, and I have a Facebook business page, which is the easiest route to reach out to me at the moment. I also, if I may, I do have a product line now as well. and I have several in-person events coming up as well, which I'd like to give shout outs, if I may, really quick
Sure,
before we
sure. Feel
continue.
free. Please do.
Okay, but I think okay, we have 10 minutes. Okay. So or I think I don't know if this is an hour and a half or an hour. I got so excited all of a sudden. But let's go with it. So of course Melanie Marquis is one of my besties. And Melanie's been around quite a long time. Love Miss Melanie Marquis. In 2020, Melanie is the proprietor of Mystical Minds Convention. It was postponed to COVID. Uh, and so I will be in the Dublin, California in this fall, October 8th and 9th. Without looking at my schedule, I believe it's October
Okay.
8th and 9th at the Mystical Minds Convention. It's in the Bay Area, Dublin, California. Please check it out, www.mysticalmindsconvention.com. I will be teaching, I think, reading and doing a panel as well. I know that that at that event specifically, that I am teaching a workshop, uh, which is spiritual CPR, uh, cleansings, protection, reversal. But for the sake of time and everything, I will be demonstrating a live egg cleanse. So what do you do when you fall under a crossed condition? Is my workshop. So
Wow.
at the
That,
Mystical Minds. Thank you. And I'll be at the Divine Key in Indianapolis as well in June, which I will be vending and doing a workshop and reading, doing readings at uh, as well. Moonstruck in Louisville, Soul Unalami in Louisville, Kentucky. I have events coming up there as well, and several other online events. I run a private group, which you know, if you're privy enough, I'm selective. I really am about the private group and things like that. And a lot is offered within the private group. Honestly, I do. You know, and Miss Marissa comes on and blesses me sometimes, and I'm always so humbled and honored to see.
if I catch it, I
Yes,
can
yes,
jump on.
yes, and I'm always like, "Oh my gosh," and I pinch myself like, "Oh my gosh, Cindy Witch, do
Silly.
you understand?" I'm
Silly.
always and yeah, there I do weekly zodiac readings, daily forecast readings, and post spiritual workings, things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm if you look on the Facebook event page for this event, there is a photograph with all of your information on it. So if you go to that, it's facebook.com/group/iwitches. I don't know. Some of you are on YouTube. I'll post it in the description, all of his information, so you can contact him. I will post that also on Facebook, so you can contact him, and check out some of the cool stuff that he has to offer. All right.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, I'm so excited. This was fun. See, nothing to be nervous about. It was great. Me and you chatting away. It's great. So, thank you everybody who tuned in. I think we did have a technical glitch. It did not publish to the actual event page, but it is on the Touch of Magic page. Somebody posted that, but there's nothing I can do once we were already on. But I will download the video and post it into that event page for anybody who wants to see it through that page. Just
It's
FYI,
also
I'm aware.
it's also on my personal page. It's broadcasting to our personal pages.
Oh, great, great. Yeah, so it's on Touch of Magic. It's on iWitches, which has a lot of people. Come on, iWitches, tune in, check out the video. And I'll see you next time on Touch of Magic. Our next episode is on May 8th because I'm actually having surgery next Friday. So
Oh,
I'm
good
not
to
going to be up to the show on Sunday. So, but I'll be back. I'll be back. On May 8th, and I'm going to be speaking to Amanda Mallard, who's one of the mods on iWitches. She's also known as Hallow. And we're going to be talking to her as our first guest on a segment called Living the Craft, where we're talking and meeting and chatting with modern witches who are living their life, in the witchy way. And she's fantastic. And I'd like to give voice to people who are living their life magically, whatever practice that they have. And if you would like to be a guest, let me know. And just message me, let me know. I'm looking for people who have obviously experience, something to share, a path to share, information to share for everybody, and that wants to talk about how they got where they were. And that's our new segment. I'm going to do that once a month on the Sunday show. So I will see you next time. And until then, remember to be the magic, because you are the magic. And that is a fact, people. Love you all. And I'll see you next time.
Big blessings. Thank you all so much.